So you grew up in Ohio. Like, how would you compare and contrast kind of how you were raised to how your kids were raised? I mean, what was growing up in Ohio like
Wow.
compared to Maine? And were you
So Toledo, the Toledo area proper is 750,000 people. Moved to Maine and live in a community of 6,500.
right?
So it different, but not in a bad way. I mean, so we grew up in a suburb of Toledo. Like I said, a lot of kids and so forth, and moving out here, I think is it was a good place to raise the kids.
You moved out later in life. When
Yeah, right. We moved here in 2003,
okay.
and our kids were 3 and 5 at the time.
Oh, okay.
So they consider this home because this is where they spent most of their time.
Right. Right.
And so I think that the small community atmosphere, well, it was great. It was great. I mean, and I think if we were back in Ohio, I still think it would be good. It'd just be a little bit different. Larger schools, just a larger area. I think there were some benefits to being in a small community.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
We had a similar thing with our kids in Massachusetts. I think our girls were like 2 and 3 when we moved here, and Jeff and Melissa were. Jeff was a freshman and Melissa was just going into middle school when we moved here. But it was a similar kind of. It was a nice area we lived in. But there's something about getting lost in the numbers kind of feel, like
Sure.
and you feel it has a different. He's making the varsity baseball team here, or we're down there. He'd be lucky to get on JV kind of thing, or some. Yeah. I definitely think we made the good call. But how you were raised? So like, thinking about how you were raised, and then how you decided to raise your kids, like.
Well, two-parent family, two-parent family. I mean, I think that's important when you're raising kids.
I agree.
And I'm the oldest of three, so I had siblings in the house, and all that goes with that, 3 boys. So it's
Yeah.
a little different having one of each. The dynamic is different. Certainly having a daughter versus growing up in a house of all boys.
I'm the same, oldest of 3, same exact scenario. Now I've got daughters,
Yeah.
which I love. Dee and I joke about this because you know how people do gender reveals now,
Right.
and I remember when Dee told me that Logan was going to be, a girl. I mean, I was happy, but there was definitely like I wanted a boy, and but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like that was just a momentary thing, but daddy's little girls is such a like a real thing. Like it's hard to, like I'm like thankfully I didn't have boys because I love them. My daughters are so awesome. They didn't take after me.
I think both my parents and my wife's parents were supportive of their kids,
Yeah.
sports and all of that, and so I think that's something that we carry on with our children. We have been, very supportive, involved.
Right.
I think is a great way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to one of my coworkers who was on this podcast, and I didn't know anything about his background, and he grew up in Brewer, and he didn't know where his next meal was coming from, and I can't imagine what growing up in that. I struggled. I was not a great student. I kind of figured it out towards the end of high school, and it was more of a motivation thing that I didn't have before. Somebody dangled a carrot in front of me, and it was enough to get me to go in a good direction. I can't imagine trying to think about where my meal's coming from, where I'm going to sleep tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My wife taught in the inner city of Toledo for a number of years and saw everything like that. It's tough.
It's going to be very tough. I can't imagine as a teacher, you want to help, but you can only do so much.
Exactly.
But I do think there's a certain amount of, like Kyle, I even asked him this, I'm like, but that made you who you are today. Like, you're that having come out of that, which not many can, you definitely, but by getting to the other side of it, it definitely makes you a better person.
Sure.
Yeah. One last thing I do want to ask you, which, because it's something that's kind of, it's still a little ways off. But you're an empty nester, right? Your kids.
Not officially. So Adam's still at the house. He is anxiously wanting to move out, but having a full-time job, which he's working almost full-time, I think is important so that he can be self-sufficient when he moves out of the house. So his hours and stuff that he works, we're most nights the two of us are eating.
Right.
My wife and I are eating.
Right.
By ourselves.
But once high school ends, and they're kind of more independent.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting transition. I mean, I look forward to more time with Dee and stuff, but so much of my life has been hanging out with the kids and doing stuff with the kids together.
I've missed the sports, and because Adam's now he's graduated. He's been out almost 2 years. Emily's at UMO, and so she's on the dance team, so she's active with the football games, the basketball games, and so forth. So we still go to those and
right.
very much enjoy that piece of it. But I missed when they were in high school. And maybe it was not only watching our kids participate, but then it was the connection with the parents.
Yeah.
Right? And so you had this little network and group of people that you saw on a regular basis, and and some of those things they naturally will fall to the wayside. It's just people get busy in other things and take different directions, but there was some camaraderie there as well, right? It's we talked about that throughout the discussion, but yeah, we've enjoyed every stage of our kids, from the babies to the the
right.
active part, and now they're moving on to different parts or different aspects of their lives. That it's okay, where's our role now?
Right.
And you find your way, and I think we feel blessed that our kids still enjoy doing things with us.
Right.
And that's not always the case, and I think that has a lot to do with how you raise your kids.
Yes.
And we feel very fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, Kaylin loves climbing Katahdin. It's like I feel like that's like something that's been passed down a couple of generations to me, and she came up to me not long ago and was like, I think, she's been like a weight room junkie. She goes gym. Her and her boyfriend, they love that, and I'm like, okay, that's good. And she came up to me recently and said, I think I want to start doing triathlon. I'm like, yes.
I can help.
Because it's a sport that we could share together. We could
That's
go
right.
do events together.
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, I see something. We could have a future here. Yeah. It's definitely how you raise them, though. I don't know how to tell somebody how to do it the right way. You just.
There is no one right way. I mean, there's certainly things you can do wrong.
Yeah. But just setting a good example. It's the best. It's the best advice I could.
Yeah. So much to that.
Yeah.